Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. Hey everybody, this is Janice, and this week we have an episode that I have been looking forward to, even though I didn't tell this person. And so now this morning I'm scrambling because I had some technical problems with another episode. And so what do you do when you're scrambling at the last minute to accomplish something? You call your closest friends and say, hey, can we do this right now? And so that's what I've done today to my dear friend, Albert Santos. Albert is originally from the Philippines. He's been in the US for a long time, but he's actually gone back and forth a little bit to work with people in agriculture in the Philippines and other parts of the developing world. So we're going to talk about the Philippines. We're going to talk about one of his favorite vegetables, which is one that has a name that a lot of Americans would think, I don't want to try that first. So Albert, thanks for getting on here so quickly with me this morning. And I know you have so much information about the Philippines agriculture that you don't have to study up.
Well, Janice, I'm honored to be here. And as you know, I would always say, what are friends for, if not to use and misuse? So anytime.
So the
you know.
Philippines agriculture, I mean, in some ways, the Philippines is still considered a developing nation. And so, like many other developing nations, it's really focused on agriculture and food security for its people, right?
Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
And they've still been putting some land in production. It looked like, as I was doing my research, it looked like they, like us, had a lot of people who decided to start gardening during COVID
Uh-huh.
and things like that. So people might be a little bit closer to agriculture in the Philippines than in the US. Or would you say urban people are pretty far from farming generally?
Well, I'll say that the the rural folks are really into agriculture because that's for sustenance and at the same time to make a living. The urban people, it's more of like a passion. They love remembering because we used to have this traditional song. We say "Bahay Kubo," which is my native hat, and then you recite all the different vegetables that grow around it, and everybody knows that song. So it sort of like links everybody to growing some kind of vegetables or food.
That's amazing. Most Americans would know Manila. They may know some of the other areas, but when you think of agriculture, what are the places that really pop to the forefront?
Well, the first of all, the most important thing is really rice. You got to have rice. Every meal is about rice. So there is the rice where they grow rice a lot, and that would be traditionally it was the central plains of Luzon, which is like the swampy areas, of Pampanga and Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, which are all to the north of Manila. And then, other places have opened up, like the Cagayan Valley region and Isabela, those more to the northeast of Luzon. That is a big rice growing area. And then some big parts of Mindanao, mainly the flat plains that can easily grow rice that are grown with a lot of water. So that's it. And then the other thing that pops to you is like to me is like the areas in the mountains, which is Baguio, all the Cordilleras, and that's where most of the temperate vegetables come from. Broccoli, cabbage, celery, all those things. And then some areas grow like a lot of tomatoes, or like in Mindanao, in Bukidnon, there are the pineapple plantations. Negros will be, you're thinking about sugar cane because that's where all the sugar cane plantations are. And then in the Bicol region, it's mostly the what we would call the hemp, or it's a different kind of hemp. It looks like the banana tree, but it's the Philippines was famous for this natural fiber to make ropes for boats. So those are the things. And then the aquaculture, which is in Cavite or around the Laguna Lake, growing the milkfish, all those things.
Wow. That's an awful lot. But as you think about the country, the thing that people need to remember is it's an island nation mainly formed by like volcanoes and things, right? So it's got these hills,
Right,
occasionally
right,
volcanoes and these incredible valleys and things. So
right.
people are trying to take advantage of the different kinds of climates to produce all the things which you just listed like such an incredibly long list. And
Well, the other thing also is the Philippines is part of Southeast Asia, and so it has some endemic species. It's a center of diversity for a lot of food crops like banana and those things. But then when the Spaniards came, and this is I only realized this when I was an adult, we have these other fruits and vegetables which are like for example the chayote we call it, and it turns out it came from Mexico, the chayote,
oh, really?
and the guanabana, which is guyabano, we call it. And I thought, and then I realized I don't find it in the other Southeast Asian places. So it turns out these were brought by the Spanish, to the Philippines from Mexico because there was a trade between Acapulco and Manila.
Yeah.
So they were exchanging. And then when I was in Mexico, I saw they have this mango. They called it mango de Manila, which is actually the type of mango that we have. So it was all these exchanges. So there's all that diversity in different kinds of foods
That's very
and
cool.
the cuisine. Yeah.
I read a book called The Food Explorer, and it was about some people who explored the world for different foods that could be grown in the US for the USDA and brought seed back or brought plants back. And that idea of finding different things that would work in different places is a part of our food heritage that a lot of times we don't think about, probably. I would assume Louisiana has some things that were brought in by the French traders or things like that, right?
Right, right, right.
And sometimes we don't know the history. So that is kind of cool to learn about it as it goes. You mentioned tomatoes. Did you mention sweet corn? Because I remember when we were in the Philippines and your friend has a vegetable seed business, we went to a big field day and saw all these different vegetables. And I can remember people eating sweet corn, especially because they cut it in a unique way to make it so we could try a lot of different kinds.
Right,
Is
right.
corn becoming something that's popular over there?
Yes, corn has always been popular. It was brought from the Americas. And we have also the different kinds of corn. We do the same things like the Mexican do, like making hominy, the on white corn. And in the central part of the Philippines, where it's mostly islands, like in Cebu and then parts of Mindanao, where it used to be they didn't really grow a lot of rice because there was no place to grow rice. So they grow corn, and they used to eat corn in place of rice
Huh.
as a staple. So that's why there's a saying back home that most of our great boxing heroes like Manny Pacquiao, he came from the southern part, and we always said that, oh, he's corn fed, that's why he's so strong. You know, I don't know. It's just it's just what Filipinos say. Maybe there's some truth to it.
That's funny. But rice is really the thing. I can remember a nephew when he was quite small, one of your nephews really being upset because he didn't know how to eat dinner because there was no rice on the table.
Exactly. Yes.
So for
Uh-huh.
most Filipinos, it's rice, but in the southern area where Pacquiao is from, maybe corn.
Right. It may be corn, but nowadays, I mean, they've also been into rice now.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, but corn was more like their staple over in that area.
yeah. That's funny.
I know because my mom comes from Cebu,
Ah, that's where the good mangoes are from, also.
right? Because it's all hilly and then it's dry. There's a very distinct dry season. So
Hmm.
the mangoes, they do well over there.
Yeah. One of the uniquely Filipino foods is bitter gourd. And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, if you're a Filipino, you have to know how to eat bitter gourd. And I used to work for a vegetable seed company back home. And in our survey, there was like three or four main vegetables that the Filipinos eat. It's like the eggplant, the bitter gourd, the the long beans or the snake beans that they call, which we call sitaw, and then the trying to get the English word. We call it. It's a type of pumpkin, but more like the calabash type of pumpkin that we have in the U.S. Which comes from Mexico. Those
Mm-hmm.
orange and really heavy ones. We call it calabaza.
Okay.
So those are the most important vegetables in the Philippines. Bitter gourd. Everybody eats bitter gourd, and it's an acquired taste. You have to like it because it's really bitter.
How would you explain the look of a bitter gourd? Because I have my way, but what does it look like for people who aren't familiar?
It's like a cucumber that has gotten old and wrinkled. It has that wrinkly skin, you know. It's called it has grooves, but and then it's like a cucumber. Then it has seeds. The seeds are different though. It's bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and the fruit itself is really has a unique bitter taste. Actually, it's the whole plant has been it's a medicinal plant. It actually helps control diabetes. So it's being sold at herbal stores
Oh, I didn't know that.
as a tea or as a tablet called Charancia. I don't know how to say that. CHA.
Okay.
I'll send you the spelling.
Yeah.
Charancia, something like that. And
Okay.
it's in tablet form. So you can take that as an herbal
Yeah.
for diabetes.
Is it?
But it's very high in iron, So you have, yeah, that's what adds up to the bitter taste. I think the iron content. So if you're like anemic, you need to eat ampalaya because it's high in iron. But then for pregnant women,
Amplaya is the word in the native tongue for bitter gourd.
right? Ampalaya is the Tagalog.
Yeah.
I say Tagalog because there's like other dialects in the Philippines, but the main one, and people will understand you if you say Ampalaya.
Yeah.
And then I married an Indian who comes from Kerala, and actually in India they call the Ampalaya Karela, which is almost the name of her state. So they eat it there too, but really the small ones that we called it in the Philippines, we used to call that the dinosaur type because it looks like the crinkles of the skin of the dinosaur, and they're small,
Yeah.
and it's very
Yeah.
bitter. The kind of ampalaya or kind of bitter gourd they eat in India, and it's also an acquired taste. My wife doesn't like it. Sad to say.
You say it looks like a cucumber that's been withered away or something. I also think it looks a little bit like a zucchini
Right, right,
that's been really, really dried up,
right.
right?
Except it's
So does it
green.
grow
Yeah,
on a
yeah. It
vine?
grows on a vine,
Yeah.
and it's I, I grow it in my backyard because I like it. I like it fresh. I actually have some good recipes for it. And one thing I found out, the cardinals, they love the thing. When the fruit ripens, they would open up the fruit and then the seeds come out and they are big seeds and the cardinals love that and they spread them around. So now I have this and
Volunteer.
right, it survives with the mulch cover and then I have these volunteer ampalayas coming out and the bees they love the flowers too. So it's very interesting.
Is it a big flower like a squash flower is?
No, it's a small. It's like the flower of a cucumber.
Okay.
And then there's a male flower, and then there's a one that produces the fruit.
Yeah.
So what the plant does, initially, it will have a flush of the male flowers to attract the bees.
Oh, nice.
So once the bee starts coming, it starts producing the female one that will bear the fruit.
Because they can drop the pollen on it from the male flowers.
But it needs the bees to cross pollinate, just like the I think the cucumber. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it as prolific as cucumbers are? Like it seems like
Yes.
cucumber plants just will not stop producing.
Yes. Right. Right. Well, the cucumber plant will stop when the summer really is very hot. But the Ampalaya or the bitter gourd, it will not stop. It keeps on producing until the fall. So later I would just let the fruits mature on the plant, and then let the cardinals have fun.
But that's why you have seeds taken all over your yard and Ampalaya showing up
Right.
everywhere in your
Right.
yard the
Right.
next year.
Uh-huh. Also, I let some fruits become mature because what I have is an open pollinated variety, so I need seeds
Next year.
for next
Okay.
year. Right. So and then I give it to other people who may want it. But I'm telling you, it's an acquired taste. My neighbors, they tried, but they're struggling to eat the ampalaya.
So how do you cook it then? What are some of the ways that you cook it?
Well, the way the Filipinos cook it is like an everyday food. Everybody makes that. It's called pinakbet. It's a stew of eggplant, that long bean, and that squash, and some okra, and that they cook. And sometimes they flavor it with ginger or some little bit of meat. And some regions they put coconut milk, others don't. Others put fermented shrimp or fermented fish. It'll make it stinky, but it gives that umami flavor.
Okay.
So right, there's a lot of variation of that dish. I mean, every place you go, the Ilocanos have a way of cooking it. The Bicolanos, the one coming from the southern part of Luzon, they make it more spicy. And then the Visayas, they cook it differently. Some call it bulanglang or pinakbet, and all these regional names. But that is that's an everyday thing. Homes or people, sometimes they'll go eat special, it will have some fermented shrimp in it, all that weird stuff. But it's good. But the Filipino taste, it hasn't really taken off like the other Southeast Asian place like Thailand or some other places, because the Philippines have a unique food is really very unique. It's we use a lot of vinegar in our food, so very regional and very specific, I would say.
Do you like fish sauce and some of the other things too?
Right, and the more stinky it is, the better. Oh, there's this kind of thing that they eat. It's fermented crab, tiny, small crabs, fermented, and they mix it with rice, and it's really stinky. I mean, I cannot eat it, but they swear that it tastes good. They eat it somewhere in the central part of Luzon in the Philippines. That's a regional thing, and I can't. I can't even handle that.
I think those foods that you're born with, that like you're born into an area where they're eaten a lot. It's very different than to come in and try it from other places, right? I can remember trying bitter gourd and I wasn't a fan. And it's the thing where, it's an acquired taste. Well, I have other sources of iron and other other vegetables. So
Right,
so why
right,
make myself eat it and
right,
acquire the taste when it's not automatic for me?
right,
But I
right.
appreciate that there are different ways to get iron in your diet, because it's one of the things that a lot of people, when they go vegetarian or something,
Yes,
it's a
exactly.
big part of how can you get that in your diet
Right,
enough, because beef and some
right,
other things are such a great source of iron.
right, right. So if you're going to go vegetarian, because um, the Filipino diet before is mainly, it's not really a lot of meat. It's really fish,
Hmm.
vegetables, and rice. Because the fish, you're never more than 50 miles from the coast, you know. So I remember before we never ate frozen fish. It was sort of like, how can you eat frozen fish? You know, the fisherman will catch
Every
uh,
day.
fish every day, and then here, well, I got used to that now. But otherwise, I never will eat a fish that's frozen. And the other thing is like there are certain indigenous tribes back home where when they eat fish, they want to see the head. They want to see the fish. You know, so if you give them a fish, a fillet, they will not eat that. They would say something is wrong here. We need to see
Yeah.
the head and the tail. So different cultures, different outlook, you know. And then, you know, we have a common friend. I'm not going to say who, but when she sees the fish with eyes, it freaks her out. She can't eat the fish with a head.
I grew up with my family going fishing and stuff, so I can take them either way. It doesn't matter. And I also eat things like
Right,
crawfish, right? So, I know I eat
right.
things that other people think, oh, that's weird, or that's not something I want. So, it's kind of
Mm.
where you are. But yeah, I don't want
Uh,
my food looking at me is a normal reaction for some
right,
here.
right,
And
right.
as a child, I
Uh-huh.
can remember I went to a Cuban birthday party. I can't remember what year it was, but it was a big year in the life of a Cuban boy becoming a man in Miami when I was quite young, and they had roasted a pig and they put the pig's head on the table, and for me that was very odd and not something my family had ever showed me as like done. But now I've been in a lot of different cultures where, seeing
Right,
the full pig that's been pig roasted is part of it.
right. We do the same thing. We got it from the I think from the Spaniards. We call it the lechon. It's like the whole pig. And then you know, with the mouth, the head with the mouth open.
Yeah.
Usually we put an
Yeah.
apple on the mouth, and then and that means like there's a big feast. You know, that's during weddings
When you
or
when you
some
go home to visit.
special occasions or a big fiesta. Right,
Yeah.
right. No, that's so like me, for example, first time I had kimchi. Whew, the smell. You know, but now I like it. So slowly you built up. When I first arrived in the U.S. and I think you know I was in graduate school, and then the our we were planting corn in the eastern part, and they took me to a barbecue restaurant where the meat was chopped together with some fat, and then they put this certain type of vinegar on it, and my goodness, I could not eat the thing because it smelled different, it looked different, you know.
Yeah.
It's just getting used to it. But now I like vinegar-based barbecue, you know. It, and then corn grits, the you know the having grits in the morning, you know,
Yeah.
that one
Yeah,
with
that's a
butter,
very southern US thing. The kind of barbecue you're talking about, that's
right?
Carolina's barbecue. I'm a Memphis barbecue girl. We're not
Okay,
going to
we're not going
argue
to
barbecue.
argue about
I
that.
really appreciate your spending this time with talking through Filipino cuisine, and especially the bitter gourd, because it is something that's unique to the Philippines. A few other Southeast Asian countries obviously have it, but it's not something you see much here. In the US, you can only buy it at Asian markets, usually global markets or something. Or you could be like Albert and grow it in your backyard.
Yes, yes, yes. Right, right. The Indians from the south, mainly the South Asians from the south, like
Yeah.
maybe the Sri Lankans also they eat that, and then mainly the Southeast Asians. The Thais they have their own varieties. If I see the shape of the fruit, I know that it's from Thailand, and the Filipinos like it a certain way in a certain size. And then there's those little ones which doesn't look like a dinosaur. They grow them also in the Philippines, and they don't mainly for the Ilocanos, mainly the people in the north, because they like the bitter taste
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
and they actually have some other stew. They squeeze the gallbladder onto the stew to give a bitter taste. So each one. So in some cultures, they really practice that sweet, sour, bitter, salty. Here in the U.S., it's mostly sweet. People here are they like sweet a lot.
Yeah. And then we bring in other cultures for the spicy or whatever.
Right.
Americans love like the Mexican palate also, but not as spicy as some of the places in the world.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, this is, I think, the first time you've done a podcast, right, Albert?
Yes. And I know. And then I realize I'm just a fill me upper, which is fine.
No, you've been on the list for a long time. I just didn't tell you because I thought he'll be ready to go whenever and I'll need him in the clutch situation. So I'll wait because I know I can count on you. I'm going to just let everybody know so far, Albert has not really done much social media, but we've been thinking about getting him to start like a cooking channel on YouTube. So if you think that people like Albert with that immense, amazing knowledge about food and cuisine, he makes the greatest empanadas, he makes me pancit noodles, he makes all the Filipino foods. And if you think somebody like him ought to be teaching that on YouTube or some website or something, go ahead and hit me up in the comments and I'll use them against Albert as we try and encourage him to do a bit more of this information sharing. Because I have a nephew who is Filipino also, so Albert can trade information and make sure Josh gets to cook that next thing that maybe he didn't learn before. So Albert, thank you for coming. I'll see you in person really, really soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks, Janice. Bye.
Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm even on Clubhouse. So feel free to look us up. Also on our website, groundedbythefarm.com. Wherever you want to get in touch, we're trying to be there. Shoot us a message about questions you have about farming and food. I hope you enjoy these episodes enough that you'll share them with friends, whether that's via social media or in a conversation. Love to think some of that is while you're having dinner with friends and family. This is a production of Grounded Communications. Editing is by Two Guys Talking. Thank you.